Commission to order. As a quick administrative item before we start, we have a mostly full quorum tonight, but Tara does have to leave at 7:30. So as Tara leaves, that's pre-planned. With that noted, let's jump in and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Sheldon, if you could lead us.
All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sheldon. See, as I noted here, 3.2, we are one short tonight. We'll go down to two short, but we still have a minimum quorum of 4. Let's go to any conflicts of interest in tonight's agenda?
No.
No? Okay, sounds good. Next, I would like to move for approval of minutes from June 19th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for June 19, 2024.
Motion by Forrest.
Second.
Second by Heather. Motion approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. All right. I'm the assistant if anybody can't tell. With that, let's jump to item 4.1. This will be presented by Sheldon.
All right, so this is a request for conditional use for a site plan approval to accommodate an event center, medical services, and general retail. The site's located off 118 South in the Teton Ranch commercial development. It's lot 2 of this development, shown here, right there. It's adjacent to 118th. It's a site plan. Sorry, here's the plat just showing the lot which the development will occur on. So the proposal, what the applicant is proposing for the site plan is, it consists of 2 buildings. The first structure is a 2-story structure. This structure is adjacent to, well, fronts 118th South. The building's about 10,000 square feet, 31 feet tall, and they're providing 30 parking stalls. In this particular building here, the uses that they're requesting or proposing are, one, a medical service to accommodate a dental facility, and then the remaining space will be reserved for just multi-tenant for retail uses. Here, as just shown here on this slide, the required parking is 31 stalls for these uses. The applicant here is providing 30, and we'll just discuss that a little more throughout this presentation. The finished materials for the first building here is just brick, stone, metal awnings, and bronze storefront. These are consistent with the MDA for the Teton Ranch commercial development. Moving on to the second structure, this is a 1-story structure. It's about 5,800 square feet, 21 feet tall. In this structure, they're providing 21 parking stalls. And this is where the event center will be, I guess, utilized or held in this particular building here. Based on city standards, they do require 20 parking stalls to park this event center. And that's based off the floor area of the actual facility itself. Again, similar finished materials, brick, stucco. There's a few additional architectural details on this building here, including, I'm assuming, like a butterfly detail on the roof there. And again, it includes some additional composite siding and bronze anodized storefront. This building here is going to be located on the south side of lot 2. Again, so here's the landscaping plan here. What they're proposing does meet city requirements. They only require 10% landscaping for this particular site. They are providing 18%. As you can see, they did a great job on providing the landscaping here for this development. A few things to consider. What staff looks into for zoning, we're going to look at the C2 development standards, which they are in compliance with, Teton commercial design standards, which they're in compliance with as well, and the conditional use standards. Engineering did have some minor concerns, corrections that are required. These do not impact the site plan at all, will not change any layouts of the building or parking or landscaping. They're basically just adding valves and stuff, some stormwater system, stuff like that. That's underground infrastructure. Now getting back to the parking, here's a breakdown of what's required per use. That's proposed. The medical service is 15, general retail is 16, event center is 20. This is what's proposed. I'm sorry, I may have messed this up. Yeah, they're providing 50 stalls. As I mentioned, 51 are required. Now, as discussed with staff and in the ordinance as well, there is a provision in there for shared parking. It just says, you know, if shared parking is recorded across the lots, and I guess there's evidence showing that, you know, parking can be changed during peak hours, right? They don't impact each other. So, you know, if the event center runs from 6 to 10 p.m., you know, that's going to be different operating hours as the medical service. Therefore, you know, there will be spaces available to provide that additional one parking stall. In addition to that, as I mentioned, there is a cross-parking agreement across this whole complex. The applicant has submitted an application for Lot 1. That Lot 1 includes, you know, additional structures, but there's a surplus of parking there. And as a condition of approval, we just, you know, we're just stating that they need to reserve additional parking to provide overflow parking for this particular development on Lot 2. With that being said, staff does recommend approval with these following conditions. And one thing to note on the landscaping requirement here, that's just something I just put in there just to ensure that, you know, they're meeting that 50% maximum coverage, which they are showing on the site plan. Just, it makes it easier to enforce when we go out and do our site inspections. The applicant is here, but if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Any questions for Sheldon?
Sheldon, because they're reciprocal parking across 1, 2, and 3, I do see where you have ADA ramps on the corners. Just curious, do you stripe a crosswalk so that?
Yes, so in this particular case, and with our current adopted ordinance on C2 design standards, they do require a change of material for the pedestrian crossings, and they are showing that here. You can see this on the site plan. They're showing the pedestrian crossings through.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe they're using a stamped concrete or a concrete material as opposed to asphalt to define those pedestrian crossings.
Seeing no other questions, I would like to invite the applicant if they have any additional comments.
Greg Stephenson, architect. Yes, we are planning to have, and we have submitted for the Lot 1, we actually have 2 additional stalls that will be put in at that time to give us a little more. There is the possibility too of the third lot, which we have, if we need to have that be in before we finish out the Lot 2, then we can kind of compromise and work and get in all of the parking that we need. We also have the shared agreement that with the major parcel to the south of us, so eventually there'll be more than enough parking to accommodate. But we understand that we've got to make it meet today's regulations, not knowing what will go in the future. So yes, we've kind of planned ahead and are trying to integrate it in. Work closely with the major developers so that theming and everything will kind of stay within his color range and things that have already been approved for the Teton Center area. But
Cool. Any questions?
So
for the
eventually there
applicant?
could be 3 lots that could share parking in that area?
say that again?
There could be 3, there's 3 lots that would share parking?
Correct, lots
Okay.
1, 2, and 3. We've submitted, and right now in our phasing, we're looking at probably October-ish for phase 3 for the last lot.
Okay. I was just a little bit worried about the event center parking, but if there's going to be another lot, do you know what type of events they're hoping to host there?
Reception type stuff.
Okay, thank you.
And they already have that tenant. And they also already have a tenant in the office building. The dental office is already signed on.
And that's the one on the west side?
On the north side of the lot, yeah. Yeah, it's in the 2-story.
Okay.
Well, I'm not seeing any additional questions for the applicant. Let's see. Any discussion from the commission?
I don't have any.
I'll open the floor for a motion.
I can make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for a new event center and multi-tenant building on Lot 2 of Teton Commercial Subdivision with staff recommendations. Yeah, 1 through 5.
I'll second.
Second by Forrest. All in favor? Or actually, roll call vote, sorry. I'll get this straight yet. Let's go with Tara.
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 4.2. This will be presented by Clint.
Good evening. Feels like it's been a while since I've been up here. Okay, so this is an additional building taking place in the Anthem development, just off here on 118th and Mountain Corridor. This is the lot that we'll be looking at tonight, just down the road from Slackwater on the corner of Herriman Main Street and Denali Park Drive. Just over an acre in terms of size. So it's being proposed as a multi-tenant building, 6,200 square feet, about 20 feet tall. They are providing some additional parking for Slackwater, which is right next door. And they do have the 23% landscaping requirement, satisfied as well. So in terms of impacts as a conditional use, by and large, the Anthem is all a commercial center. We don't anticipate any additional impacts to the commercial development that's already in place, nor the commercial development that will take place in the future with this development. In regards to landscaping, they do meet the requirement. They exceed that requirement, having 23%. We do suggest, or not suggest, but recommend one additional stall on the east side of the building. As you can see, the little green rectangle there. So our ordinance requires that whenever you have more than 10 parking spaces in a row, that be separated by a parking island. And so that would remove one of the extra parking stalls, but then satisfy the ordinance. And speaking with the applicant, it seems like they're okay with that. And then in addition to that, any changes to the landscape plan would need to be approved by the landscape architect and the city. The applicant is proposing a waiver of or requesting a waiver of strict compliance. So in our landscaping ordinance, when certain criteria occur, an applicant has the ability or the opportunity to request this. So in this regard, what they're asking a waiver from is foundation landscaping, which along the street frontage side of a building, they're required to have a 3-foot deep landscape strip on 50% of that frontage. So not the entire frontage, but just 50% of it. And there's certain things, so the findings here is it preserves the landscaping purpose, doesn't have a negative effect on the adjacent properties, and strict compliance is unreasonable. So in their statement of why they wanted this, it was to kind of help with tenant occupancy, right? They're not exactly sure where the doors are going to be, so if they provide a plan and then the doors move, then landscape plan's got to change. And so this provides them some flexibility as tenants move in and out, and the site gets redesigned. So what they're proposing, what they originally had proposed in the staff report was four potted plants along the front of there. After they saw the staff report requesting 8, they have provided the 8 potted plants in front of the building. As I mentioned in our pre-meeting, in the recommendations of approval, we didn't necessarily specify a size of pot, but that might not be a bad idea, just to make sure that we get something that's sizable in terms of, if they're asking to reduce the amount of landscaping, at least get something substantial that still provides that beautification, you know, that landscaping element to their site. And I think as a staff, we'd request at least a planter that was at least 30 inches tall and, I don't know, 20 gallons or something like that. Whoops. So again, this is kind of what is required. This is an example of foundational landscaping, and this is what they're providing here as the potted planters. In terms of elevation, this is one of their another building. They have a couple other buildings that look just like this out on site, stucco and stone, with some awnings over them. And they will be required to screen utilities, and they've provided for that as well on their plans with some landscaping. So, one other thing I would draw attention to is on the staff report, it talked about completing the full access to the dumpster, and we would amend that to make sure that just you have the applicant complete their portion of the access to that dumpster. So, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer what I can. The applicant is here. I'm sure they would like to address the council or the commission as well. So,
Any questions for Clint?
Clint, on the recommendations, item 2B, 4 pots per applicant, 8 pots per staff. I noticed on the drawing that you had, it showed 8 pots, but in our packet, it only shows 4.
right.
Can you help me understand all that?
Yeah, this drawing was provided to us yesterday, so I just thought, you know, so this came from the applicant. I think they're in agreement to provide the 8 pots. So I just thought I would just show that they're willing to satisfy that condition already.
Understood.
The original submittal was for the 4 pots, and then they moved to the 8 after they saw staff recommendations.
Seeing no further questions, I'll invite the applicant to make additional comment if desired. All right, thank you. So with that, I'll open up for discussion amongst the commission.
I think it looks good. I'll make a motion to approve item 4.2 with staff's 5 recommendations, and to add an additional point on number 2B, that the pots are at least 30 inches tall.
I'll second. Motion by Heather, second by
Was it 30 inches tall or 30 inches wide? What did you say, Clint? Tall, okay.
With that motion, I'll make a roll call. Andrea?
Yes.
Yes.
Carol? Heather?
Yes.
Forrest? Yes. Tara?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes. Saying it wrong.
No.
Oh. Just because I said Delenn, I think Delenn about 3 times. I don't know why. Okay, we move on to item 5.1, which does include a public hearing. So I will read our public comment policy and procedure before we move on to the next item. The purpose of the public comment policy is to allow citizens to address items on the agenda. Citizens requesting to address the commission will be asked to complete a written comment form and present it to the Deputy City Recorder. In general, the chair will allow an individual 3 minutes to address the commission. A spokesperson recognized as representing a group in attendance may be allowed up to 5 minutes. This policy applies in all public hearings. So going to agenda item 5.1, this will be presented by Sheldon.
All right. So I'm not seeing the applicant here today. I just reached out to him to see if he's planning on attending. I'm not sure if you guys want to go ahead and just review the application, or if you want to table it or push it towards the end of the meeting. But if you'd like to proceed.
But you just hadn't heard anything from him yet?
I'm sorry?
You haven't heard anything from the applicant yet?
No, I just sent him an email, but I can
So
try his phone.
I agree with that idea. Any concern from the commission if we move this to, let's move item 5.1 to the end of the agenda. We'll come back to that later.
Thank you.
With that, let's move to item 5.2 on the agenda, which is also, has public comment, and the same policy applies. And Clint will be presenting on this item.
Back again. All right, so this is a request from the Mountain View Plaza Group to amend their MDA that was just recently approved. Just some minor modifications. This is where it's taking place, just south of the site that we just looked at, along Herriman Main Street and Miller Crossing Drive. So the proposal is threefold. They want to expand their permitted uses. They're proposing a redesign of the corner plaza, and then they want to add a master sign plan. What kind of goes through these bit by bit, I guess you could say. So the current uses are derived towards, providing a place that is that has recreation, entertainment amenities, restaurant amenities, and so forth. The proposed uses, for the most part, comply with that. They're requesting a bar establishment, animal care service, a personal care service, and a medical service. There was another one for an indoor gym. That is already satisfied in the recreation and entertainment indoor. So I didn't put that down here as one of the proposed uses. So in terms of staff recommendations, we're okay with most of these. There is some conditions that we would like to consider for the animal care services, and we'll get into those. So one short visit here to the bar establishment. There's a couple of ways that we could look at that if you wanted to move forward with a bar or an alternative as a full-service restaurant. One requires food, one does not, but that's just something that the commission can consider or potentially the council at that point. So in regards to the animal care service, as was mentioned before, when the site was originally proposed to the city, it was going to be, kind of a site with a lot of vitality, a lot of retail, commercial retail uses and restaurant uses. There were some office uses proposed, and that was kind of further on the east side of the site. What the applicant is proposing here, though, with the animal care service, typical veterinarian services and stuff like that. So in regards to how that fits into what the site was designed for and kind of what the agreement lent itself to, as a staff, we had some concerns in regards to how that would affect the overall vitality of the site, especially in regards to placement of that veterinary service. In the staff report, we recommend that veterinary service be approved as a condition, as a use, but not be allowed adjacent to that corner plaza. There are 3 other plazas in that center, though, that we might want to consider as well. So these pictures here below, these were taken from the MDA that was approved, just in kind of give a perspective of what was, what the idea behind these plazas would look like. This is the site plan here that was approved as the concept plan that was approved with the MDA. So the sites that are in red are sites that the veterinarian service would not be allowed in. And then these other sites in yellow are other sites that you might want to consider in terms of, do we want to have a veterinary service adjacent to those plazas. So that would be the first recommendation. In terms of staff, we would recommend only bars, restaurants, retail services, and entertainment adjacent to plazas. The next part of this is a master sign plan. This is to help more or less facilitate their sign plan approval. Typically, as part of policy, if they have a masonry base and then masonry going up to one side, then we can review that administratively. In their design, they wanted to just keep this look as they proposed. So, from a staff perspective, it's an attractive sign. I think that we're all okay with the look of it, and implementing it as part of their sign master plan will give them ability give them the ability to have their signs approved administratively instead of having to come back for a conditional use. They are proposing some signage on a portion or a piece of the plaza, and our only recommendation would be that these two signs, the text or the copy, coincide with each other to kind of solidify that placemaking a little bit more. Yeah. So we move on to probably the biggest part of the request is just redesigning the plaza. So the approved plan kind of has this S-shaped water feature that moves through there with, they had some raised planters on the outside of the plaza with some seating facing towards the inside. And then further to the south, they had a game area. They were going to do maybe some ping pong table or chess table or something like that. So in lieu of all those, they've removed some of those. The proposed plan here, and the applicant can speak better to this than I can, but what they're kind of looking at doing is more of so they'll have a raised entertainment deck, I guess you could say, that that they can have entertainers or whoever come and present their craft to the people that visit the site. They do have the fire features are still there. The paving will be concrete, and then they'll have brick pavers as well. And then they have they've proposed a wrought iron fence along the perimeter of that sidewalk to the west. And we'll get into, they have some more renderings. You'll get a better idea of what the site looks like now. So anyways, these are the changes. You can see what was removed, what's being proposed. This is kind of just a walkthrough of the precedent image, moving to what was approved with the water feature and now is being requested with this next change here. And these are some renderings. Not everything that was on the plans for the redesign got into the renderings, but by and large, most of it did. You can see the wrought iron fence, the stage here. That is right behind the Mountain View Plaza, so the sign faces out. On the other side of that, it will kind of be that raised stage that we mentioned. This is looking more internal to the site to show the seating and the shade cells. Under the shade cells will be where the playground will be, and that will have a rubberized floor, I guess you could say, and that will have a 4-inch curb to kind of keep that rubber mat in place. This is a statement from the applicant on regards to why they did the redesign. But the new design gives a focal point, provide entertainment opportunities for people to present their art, essentially. In terms of recommendation, these are the things that we are recommending for consideration for the council. So that being said, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to take anything. If not, I'm sure the applicant would like to address the commission as well.
So in redesigning that plaza, we used to have a lot of seating around the perimeter. That's all been eliminated, and a fence, an iron fence has been put in instead. How much seating did we lose within that space?
In terms of seats, that's hard to say. So there's the seating elements here are so under a lot of these tree canopies will be seating all the way. Well, not all the way, but you can see the seats on either side of those. And you could always even go as far as saying that the plaza or the stage, when it's not being used, people could sit on the steps there. That could be another seating option. There'll be some seats adjacent to the playground, and then there'll be benches around that stage area as well. I'm not sure in regards to how much seating we gained versus lost. We probably lost a little bit, but maybe not.
Well, because it used to be along the entire perimeter was a seating area,
Right.
Which was great. but now it's just a landscape with a fence. I think in that aspect, I think that it's
This
a little
isn't
bit-
going through, it's
a
not
little difficult.
working, or else I'd click back to that image.
Yeah.
But I think we're frozen or something. Keep going back. Right there. Yeah, so there is maybe a substantial amount of seating that's being lost there.
Yeah, the focus has changed from kind of the kid area, you know, with the water feature and stuff like that. That was kind of the focus before. And then you had a little game area on the side. Now it's the little stage, and then the kids are kind of like off to the side with the benches facing the playground area, so they're not even, yeah. I'm just not sure about the new layout for that, but it's not quite what was approved in the plan.
Yeah, and again, the applicant is here, they could probably
Yeah.
address some of
Is
our
there any
questions
additional
and
questions
concerns.
for Clint? I'd like to invite the applicant up to address us if they have any additional comments. And could you state your name for the record, please?
Good evening. Chris Layton, Layton Davis Architects, representing the applicant, and also representing the process, and maybe I can answer some of those questions or concerns. I think in short, this has always been the corner plaza that becomes kind of a central element to create an environment where people can rest, be entertained, look, play, so that it becomes an engaging part of the whole retail center. What we found was that initially, which started out to be almost a reflecting pool that seemed more like a formal plaza in a city, needed to have some sort of water function that engaged people. And then we realized that that might happen for about 4 months of the year. And the rest of the time of the year, it tends to gather debris and things, and it's really not entertaining. And that led us to think about types of entertainment that can be all year round, whether it's playground equipment for children, musical entertainment where you can sit around and listen to whoever is doing poetry or rap or whatever, but just civic entertainment. It creates a place where that can really occur. To the comment about additional seating along the perimeter of the landscaping, I don't think any of us would be opposed to having more seating. And certainly that's a nice kind of shady backdrop for it. So the concept is it's still the center of activity. It's just that the activity changes to something that I think allows a venue for more types of entertainment and a broader season of entertaining and hanging out, and from children's choirs to guitarists, who knows.
Thank you, Chris. I do have a question. On the original plan, the approved plan, there were perimeter planters along the right-of-way line at the corner. Those planters had curb walls on them that served kind of as a safety buffer for the kids, the people inside the plaza. Not saying that Herriman has crazy drivers, but in the advent that a crazy driver comes up, that wrought iron fence isn't much protection. I kind of am concerned with the safety feature of this plaza being right there on the corner of two intersecting streets without those protections of those planters there.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that a berm is as durable as a masonry wall, although there is a 3-foot berm in that planting area with trees and other things that naturally, I'm not sure they'd stop a half-ton truck, but I think that's a valid point. But our intention was that we would create a more natural buffer that's not as harsh and not as hard, that you can see through, and that still controls people within the space. It still defines the space. That was the goal.
Right. I don't think I have too many issues with the redesign as far as the geometry goes and what your intentions are, a full 12 months worth of use. Mine, again, defaults to the safety of those inside the plaza. So I, for one, would like to see some sort of, you already have a planter there. You're saying there's a berm there. I can't tell from the plan, but if there's a berm there, I don't know how hard it'd be to put a curb wall maybe on the inside, so you're coming up the berm down to the plaza, but that somehow make a protection area.
Would steel posts that are part of the fencing system suffice? They tend to look less heavy and more visibly open, and still solve that
I believe so.
concern.
I would like staff to, if that's what you're proposing, I'd like staff to take a look at that and see if it works, but some tool in place to add more security, more protection.
I know we're probably not supposed to solve it, but would boulders be acceptable? I don't know.
I'll leave that to staff. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
for my take, I'm after a little more safety for those that are inside the plaza.
I think that's a great comment.
Any additional questions for?
So in this new proposed plan, you are proposing doing a brick paver in the two concentric circles?
Yeah, that's been another ongoing challenge where we were, maybe we finally just decided, let's just do the brick pavers and integrate them into the design. Not that it was, we were trying some different types of honed concrete and things, as you all may recall.
Yeah.
Mostly aesthetically. And then as the street was designed, we started getting some slope issues that we needed to resolve at the same time. So we were back to, how about if we introduce this kind of array, this radiating thing from the center of the entertainment that has bands of really nice Belgard pavers and then colored concrete and Belgard pavers.
Sure.
So that's the new idea.
No, I appreciate that, because I think that was a I think that was a discussion point last time that we discussed this project, was changing to the honed concrete pavers versus the true pavers. So appreciate that.
As a comment on my part, I have to say I like the new plan layout for its placement of trees. That'll provide a lot of shade.
Sure.
And following on the concentric circles, I think it gives it a nice feel.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, it might impede you watching whatever's happening at the stage, a little bit, but
Yeah, a little bit, but
when they grow up taller, and then it won't. So
Yeah.
it'll provide some great shade.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice touch.
Well, if I may, outside of the issue of the plaza, I'd like to talk a little bit about the pet facility, the vet clinic, or whatever it is. I don't know, when this was introduced to us, and we're going back in time now, all the way till this meeting, this Mountain View Plaza was It was kind of a upscale gathering place, nice shopping, some restaurants to go to. I'm just not sure I'm thrilled about having an animal anything next door to my restaurant. Is there, I mean, I know we're not here to dictate tenants and that, but I'm just saying that from my take, the proximity, the location of a pet or an animal or a vet, anything in this development just doesn't seem conducive to what the goal was.
Well, and I'd be speaking out of turn if I responded for the real applicant, that's the developer that's creating leases and seeing the need for this kind of a use and service. I think Clinton's idea and recommendation to create locations where they don't open to areas where food is served and where people might be eating. But it's definitely, I don't think the old dog groomery of our youth is the same as they are today. They're very, very much more respectable and common businesses to see in retail centers. That's just my opinion.
It would cause policing on the side of the developer too. I don't want to see the plaza become a dog park.
Fair. That certainly isn't the intent.
Any additional questions for the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson.
All right, let's open this up for public comment. Please state your name for the record.
Tanner Spencer, also representing the applicant as he is away on work right now. In talking with Aaron, the goal was economic growth of the city, right? If we come in with 18 boutique ice cream shops, we may not have a lot of growth and future economics of really strong and sturdy roots. That was the whole goal with the additional MDA, was we expand out of just doing entertainment and restaurants and expand and bring in a lot more revenue to the city. And that was one of the big pushes from Aaron that he wanted conveyed to this message. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other. If the applicant wants to make public comment. Okay. Well, we'll keep things open. Nope. No, we cannot hear him. Checking technical difficulties. See, is it Aaron? Aaron, can you speak? Not hearing anything yet.
We call him and put him on speaker.
Let's try this the old-fashioned way. Yeah, I'm just going to put my phone up to the mic. And this is Aaron, one of the project owners, Aaron Osmond. You're on.
to hear me without the speaker on?
You're good.
Okay, I appreciate the opportunity to speak, Planning Commission, and I just wanted to add just a couple of thoughts. First of all, on the tenant use, we also grappled with this issue. We found that our understanding of what this vet clinic would be like is much different than what we're all used to. This is a high-end veterinarian hospital with professional office space, much like a medical facility, where the individuals that are coming to bring their pets there are for specific medical care. And they have, as part of their proposed lease, strict governing policy about where animals can and cannot be. And we're hearing that this type of use brings individuals with their pets, and then they stay,
get food, participate at, an entertainment venue while their pet is being taken care of.
So we
So we think it's an appropriate accommodated use, and that's the context of why we were open to it.
We can hear you. Please proceed.
Oh, can you hear me now on my regular mic?
We can hear you through regular mic. Please proceed.
Oh, wonderful. So I just wanted to make sure that was the context. We absolutely agree with staff that the placement of that tenant matters, that we don't want it adjacent to the actual plaza. It was never our intent for that to be there. We're working through that disconnect with the tenant. We want to have restaurant and entertainment use next to the main plaza. And this other tenant use will be, again, a high-end veterinarian service that is a national tenant with spots all over the country. Again, a very reputable, professional office, more like a medical office space. So that's the context of it. We did not seek it. It came to us, but we're very excited about their willingness to bring this facility to the environment. They know this is a higher end, more professional environment, and that's the level that they were looking for as well. Any questions about that back to the council or to the commission?
I don't. Aaron, I think you addressed my concerns.
Wonderful. And I just want to make one other comment about the layout and the new plaza. I want to say to the commission that we have been working closely, as you know, with staff, trying to find ways to make these designs work and balance both economic as well as functional use of that space to meet the spirit of what we had agreed to with this commission and with the council. We feel like this new balance does that, both from a standpoint of the pavers to the foliage, to the use, to the interaction between the plaza and the restaurants, inviting public in and creating reasons for both children and adults to want to stay. I concur with the safety concern. Happy to work with staff to figure that out. We want that to be a safe location. And I think that's the balance we were trying to achieve. And now we know economically we can do it. We can do it in a way that we can afford it, in a way that we can bring high quality tenants in that will help us to pay for it. But the combination of all those elements are now reflected in that plan. And that's it from my side. Any questions from the commission about that?
Nope, no questions on that. Thank you.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you. I'm glad we were able to come through here.
Me too.
See, technically, we're still in the public comment. Any additional public? You have to have a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Forrest, second by Heather. Andrea, do you approve?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Or to close the meeting. As a quick note, Tara did leave at 7:30, that for the record. With that said, let's open it up for discussion amongst the commission.
Well, my concern is the security, the safety of the citizenship in the plaza area, and then the proximity of it sounds like an animal hospital. So if they put the hospital away from, I don't know where their restaurants are going. I don't know if they even know yet, but keep things separated and don't have the plaza turn into a dog park, and add the safety issues. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I know for me, I like the new layout. I think it's got some better shade.
I don't mind the new layout.
I like the new layout. I think it does well.
I mean, The raised platform, you know, I can see a band on there, but you're 50 feet away from a busy road.
Yeah,
And
it's still doable. And,
just turn up my hearing aids and we'll be fine.
yep. They may need to work in an ADA ramp somewhere, but that's not for us to consider.
I thought there was one.
Well, not onto the platform.
Oh, yeah. I don't know, is that, Mike, is that even needed? ADA onto the platform?
Well, it's not, it's an ADA. ADA is a bit of a different animal. It'll be building department will take care of that.
Gotcha.
Any other comments?
So I think my question is that map that showed the red and the yellow where it was,
Oh, yeah, can we go back to that slide?
yeah.
Or the
Or that one too,
suggested
yeah, that-
locations?
Yeah. This one, do
There you
we, is
Yeah.
that something that we want to make a condition or?
I almost wonder if it could be a condition of red is not approved and yellow is not
either?
recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah, the front four on the northwest corner, I would say just not recommended there. Maybe on the back side there. It's not really a back, but
Yeah, I'm kind of of the opinion that it really shouldn't be in any of the red or yellows. I mean, the idea was, when this was approved in the MDA, was that this would be great, not just to have one small little courtyard plaza, but that there would be these intermediate plazas as well that would be great places to hang out and to eat and stuff like that. And if we say, yeah, it's great, but you know, you can have an animal veterinarian emergency vet located there, no one's gonna wanna be right next to an emergency vet, sitting there eating their dinner. I mean, I guess there's implications in that, but, for my personal opinion would be to just restrict all the areas that are both yellow and red. I'm not against the emergency vet. I think that it can work in this development, but just not in those locations.
I think I agree, like whether it's a vet or a groomer or whatever it is, I think the red and yellow would just be the recommendation, that it could only be the bar, the restaurant, everything along the bottom, so.
I mean, I could see it at like Building 6, adjacent to that, the pull around, you know, because you've got your retention pond over there. It's kind of off to the corner. You know, that may be a good option, because bringing your animal to the vet, they have to use the restroom. You need a place for them to use the restroom.
Off to the detention pond?
Hey, the retention pond that was supposed to be a plaza that no longer is, it's better than in a plaza.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
yeah, I don't know how to solve that.
I think all the other exceptions, though, that they're asking for, I think that makes sense. As long as they meet that 35% that the city is required for entertainment and eating.
Yeah. I think it looks good, but
It's just gonna require them to ensure it doesn't downgrade into a mess.
Right. Well, and I agree with you, Daryl, on the plaza, having something other than just a metal fence going around the side. If you're already doing a berm, you know, how hard is it just to retain that berm within walls?
Right. Well, we can add conditions to the staff.
Well, recommendations, as you know, you're making a recommendation to the council.
Like
You could identify these questions or concerns, and we can move that forward to the council.
well, I can't make a motion.
No, you can't. Sounds like it's yours, Forrest.
All right. If no one else has anything else to say, then I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the city council for item 5.2. Review and consider an amendment to the Mountain View Plaza Development Agreement at 12252 South Herriman Main Street, the C2 commercial zone, with the city's, or the staff's recommendations, 6 recommendations, including the limitation of any animal care services in any of the adjacent buildings to a plaza within the site.
And the security around the perimeter of the plaza.
And that they work with city to implement additional security at the main plaza intersection.
I'll second.
Motion by Forrest, second by Darrell. Take a vote. Andrea?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Recommendation to the council has been made. All right, let's go on to item 5.3. This is a discussion of the Hidden Oaks Master Development that will be led by Mike Malay.
I believe our applicant
Oh,
is here. Do you want to return to that
5.1.
item?
Oh, yeah, 4 point.
is
5.1.
everybody on the council, would someone like to make a motion to go back to 5.1?
I'll make a motion to go back to 5.1.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's go back to 5.1. Sheldon, if you would like to.
All right. This is a rezone request. From property located off of Rose Canyon Road and about 134th South. This is a general overview of the site. The boxed area here, this is the portion of this property that's in question for the rezone. A little history on this parcel here. It's zoned A143. Again, the general plan's future land use map does show this as neighborhood 1, which does support the requested rezone. The subject property itself is just over 2 acres, and what the proposal is, I guess through negotiations with the applicant and the property owners of this 2-acre lot, there was an agreement made where they were going to purchase the southern portion of this property, about 8.1 acres, to essentially expand the Holly Pond subdivision, which we saw last month. As mentioned, what they are requesting a rezone from A143 to R110, of 0.81 acres of this property, and the remaining 1.37 acres will remain as A143. As mentioned, the intent behind this request is to add some additional lots to the Holly Pond subdivision. Looking at general plan compliance, as mentioned, the general plan does show this as neighborhood 1, which does support these following zones, which includes R110, which is requested by the applicant. Again, this is just showing the area for the requested rezone and kind of putting that in position with the Holly Pond subdivision, so you get a general idea and what the applicant is requesting and his intent for future development for this property. Here's a concept plan of the subdivision, how that expansion will work. Again, it's just showing 2 additional lots. Each one of these lots is about 15,000 square feet, well, 13,000 square feet, sorry. And stubbing that existing right-of-way, well, the future right-of-way further to the east to accommodate future development of those undeveloped properties. Again, staff, we looked at, there's several things we take in consideration when reviewing this application. Is it harmonious with the character of the development of the neighborhood, of the area, and does it adversely affect any adjacent properties? Staff did not find anything that, that would constitute any zoning conditions at all on this property. As I said, it's just minimal, it's just 2 additional lots. That being said, staff does recommend recommend a positive recommendation to the city council. Sorry, couldn't get that out. But do you guys have any questions for me?
I do have a quick question. So remind me, was that the house in the back, did we eliminate that north entry? Or are they adding it in through this entrance?
One here.
So the original proposal, let's see, we'll go back to the plat here. Originally,
Yeah,
on
along here.
the first revision of the subdivision there, they were proposing like a paved access to this rear lot back here. Instead, they've addressed that by stubbing this public right-of-way to the east side of the property. And part of that approval process of that subdivision is they were going to install access, I guess, a driveway, a paved driveway up to the property owner's home. And that was in lieu to some entitlements they had for an access easement that ran along the north portion of the Holly Pond subdivision. So they will still maintain that access. Well, they'll be gaining better access to the property as opposed to driving down that dirt road, so.
Okay, thank you.
So along the same lines, so obviously we're gonna have to see this when it comes to the actual site plan, but has engineering had any issues with, or I guess fire have any issues with it just dead ending for the two lots?
So that will, when we go into the subdivision process, then
Right.
we'll kind of flush those out. So
Okay.
they haven't seen, they don't, on rezones, they don't really get into it because it's just a land use type.
Yeah, and the only reason I asked was because you had shown the suggested subdivision of it, and
Yeah.
there isn't a whole lot of room to kind of rework that to get a turnaround for fire. But
Right, and that could be achieved through maybe an easement with a hammerhead until that future connection, moves
Right.
further east.
Okay.
And the applicant
Does-
is, oh, sorry, go ahead.
One last question for me. So does the remaining lot keep meet the requirements for the A143?
Yeah, so they're still over an acre, and that base zone requires 1 acre minimum lot sizes.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions?
All right.
All right, with that, let's invite the applicant up to add additional comment if desired. And could you state your name for the record, please?
My name, pardon me, my name is Alan Prince. I'm certainly apologize for not being here earlier, and I misunderstood my structure on the agenda tonight, so thank you for your accommodation. I don't have further comments to add unless there are questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer any of them. This was to be we had grand visions of adding this piece of property to the next parcel to the east of us. And at the end of the day, that didn't work out. And so it left a gap between where Holly's Pond now ends and that new phase will be, the new subdivision will begin to the east of us. You'll be seeing that, I would imagine, before the year unfolds. And so this is filling in that gap and also providing access, as you've mentioned, to the Withers family that live in the home back here. We worked out a sewer easement with them out to access the sewer on the north side of their property, and then as part of that, then are asphalting back along their property and back to their home. And that'll be the first time they've had hard surfaced access to their home in all of these years. A big improvement for them.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This is open for public comment, and so I will open the public comment session. Is there anyone online or any comments online? Nope, okay. Anyone like to make a motion to close public comment?
Real quick, was this the one that we received a comment on?
No.
Oh, okay.
Make it, just for the record, yeah, we did notice, we had a community meeting on July 1st where nobody attended, and then we sent notices for this hearing on July 3rd, and we received no responses from the people we noticed.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheldon.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion by Heather, second by Forrest. All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Or do I have to roll call that one?
No.
Okay. Any discussion amongst the commission?
I think these are the kinds of developments that the city wants. It works, it makes sense, it
Yeah.
serves a need, so I applaud you.
Takes a while to get through all this, but yeah,
It takes some effort, but
but valuable. So I think it's good. Any other comments?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of item 5.1.
Motion by Forrest,
Second.
second by Heather. We'll make a roll call. Start on this end. Forrest?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Daryl?
yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Motion is recommended for approval. Move on to City Council. Thank you. All right, with that, let's move to item 5.3. 5.3 is a Hidden Oaks Master Development Agreement modification. Mike Malloy will make a presentation on this. It is we'll have public comment.
Thank you. I'll be brief as the applicant is here and can perhaps better answer some of your questions about the details of the amendment or the intent behind the proposed amendment. But I will go through a few reference images here for public review as well as the commission's. General vicinity of this project. The master developer is the Danzy, or part of the Danzy family in our community. Most of the property has been acquired by Ivory or Perry as some development partners within the community. This particular application, the master developer, the Danzys, authorized or designated Ivory to be their spokesperson before you tonight. So again, the Danzys are still the master developer technically under the agreement. In the staff report, these are the specific items that were requested by the applicant to potentially amend in the development agreement. They're kind of two main parts, and they often are interrelated. So the very first one, amend quantities and locations of open space within the development. That is largely being driven because another part of the request is to remove references to senior housing within the development agreement. So there is currently an obligation to do some type of a senior housing project in pods 15 and 17 with a specific number of units that were assigned to that project, that portion of the project. Based on the applicant's experience with developing senior housing project, they believe that the marketplace just isn't sufficient to support the goal of the infrastructure, the investment of those phases. And so they would like the flexibility to include just traditional single-family housing. It doesn't change the counts, it doesn't change the number of units or the density associated with the project. And again, they can better explain kind of what their vision is in making this adjustment. They may very well still have some product that would be attractive to 55 plus, or maybe even potentially reserved, but they didn't want to have that restriction maintained in the development agreement as it's presently written. So in changing from a senior housing product type, where you typically just own the footprint or lease the footprint of your unit, and then everything else around your home is held in common essentially, it then qualifies for open space. But where potentially these would have more single family, just traditional lots with private yards, that reduces the amount of landscaping that would be counted as open space under the agreement. So that's what's generating that reduction in open space and the location of that within the project area. Also some other minor land use changes to the plan itself, and I'll show you a couple on the slides, I already talked about the senior housing. We also talked about how there's been some changes in some of the regional transportation infrastructure, the master planning, working with UDOT and other development partners. We at one time thought 7900 West would be a capital improvement eligible road based on other infrastructure and street planning that the city is engaged in. That road is now going to be what we call a local road. It'll be still a city street. It'll meet city standards, but it won't qualify for capital improvement. And currently the agreement says that that will be a capital improvement street. And so at the request of the city, we're saying that road needs to be a local road, remove all references to that as a capital improvement road. And then consequently, we're also going to be reducing the right-of-way into our standard local cross-section of 60 feet. So just for a reference, this is the original land use plan that was in the Hidden Oaks Master Development Agreement in 2018. This land use plan was very gently modified as Ivory began to acquire property within the project from the master developer. Also, there was a lot of engineering work that happened along the creek that is the center open space that runs east to west throughout this project. That creek was redesigned, parts of it were piped. All of this was reviewed with FEMA. And so the shape and kind of the quantities of open space that were associated with the creek changed. And we also, with Ivory's participation, we actually increased the amount of improved open space, actual park open space, not just natural open space within the project area. So there were a number of changes that were made, but again, very minor, very gentle on this from the original to 2020. This actually qualified as an administrative review, and so this was not brought to the Planning Commission under the current MDA. It did not need to. This was just all done administratively, but that became the amended land use plan in 2020. And then this is the amendment that is before you tonight, and you can see there's this little call out, this little exploded kind of box that's identifying the changes in open space. And in this conceptual, or at least this anticipated open space plan with the change of land use, if that were approved by the City Council, they're anticipating being a little bit under the 20% minimum requirement for open space. And again, I'm using that term open space very broadly. That can be improved park space. It can be just natural, unimproved open space as well. It does get weighted. There are different weights as to whether or not it's natural or improved open space. So in case you want to see this a little bit closer for reference tonight, I just have a blow-up of that little table. One of the things, for example, in making adjustments to this map based on prior decisions, in fact, I apologize, I did not, oh, this is correct. You'll notice pod 2, at the bottom of the screen, has this light yellow color. Originally, this was blue. There was a thought that this would be a school site. But in the agreement, it also said in pod 2 that if it were not developed for a school site, there could be up to 29 residential units for pod 2. School site did not develop. This was approved by the Planning Commission for residential development. And so this current proposal before you includes an amendment that we've already essentially approved as a city, right? And there's a few other things like that were driven by engineering, like the exact location of a retention pond or something like that. There were some adjustments in the plan that were required, for engineering alignment of some park or trail connections. So this is like refining the land use plan based on previous decisions that have been approved by the city, as well as these potential changes, requested changes in pod 15 15 and 17 and some of the open space calculations. This is an exhibit that I received just this afternoon that kind of tries to illustrate that balance between what's going to be private versus potentially public or common space within these pods, and I'll let the applicant better address those for you tonight. But as you know, this is a public hearing. Your role is to review and consider the proposal, conduct the public hearing, and then make a motion to recommend approval. You can recommend denial. You could also consider other options or alterations to the proposal. Your motion is a recommendation to the City Council to make the final decision on this matter. Any questions for staff at this time?
Mike, what are the red dashed lines? Are they
That-
phase
on
lines,
this-
trails?
So those are trail connections. Yeah. So, as you know, the applicant is here to be able to address your comments, and I'm sure he'd like to probably address you now and after the hearing.
Sure. Real quick, what was in the original MDA, what was the percentage of senior housing that was proposed?
It's not a percentage, it was a number of units. And those unit counts in the pods are not changing. It's the same number of units, it's just changing product type.
But what was the number of units that were going to be senior housing?
So in 15, it says there could, a maximum of 31, and in 17, it was a maximum of 57.
So there was 2 pods basically that were kind of set aside as the senior
And you'll
housing.
see this is the currently approved plan. Those same numbers are there. 15 has 31,
Right.
17 has 57.
Okay.
So the underlying zone doesn't change, nothing changes other than, and they were all going to be single-family detached as well, under a senior housing product.
Right, but they were going to fall under the Old Persons Act of 1995. Okay.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Okay.
We'd like to invite the applicant up to provide additional information if desired. And please state your name for the record.
Brad Mackey with Ivory Development. Thanks for letting me come tonight. I think Mike did an excellent job explaining the process here that we're proposing. If you look at the land use plan that was approved in 2020 and the original land use plan, Pod 15 and Pod 17 actually already identify the minimum lot sizes if they were not developed in a pad lot scenario. And we had a little bit of conflicting language in your code. Senior housing requirements are pad lots. The MDA already contemplated minimum lot sizes in each pod. And so what we are proposing is to, instead of doing smaller pad lots where the home basically takes up the whole pad, that we would just do larger single-family lots. And I think if you go to the exhibit, Mike, that I sent you earlier today.
Can you forward that for him, Mitch? Or one more. There you go.
Okay, on this one. This is just a concept of what could happen. But in your upper right-hand corner, there's a table that identifies some lot sizes. So for instance, the blue lots on the far west, in this concept plan would be over half-acre lots. The kind of red colored lots are 12 to 15,000 square feet, I believe. And so it just gives you an idea of the larger lot sizes. And what we would like to do is still maintain the pad lots and sell the area on the south side that you see that are still showing as pads as a age-targeted senior housing project, very similar to what was already approved. And then we would just transition to some traditional single-family large lots adjacent to the creek. And really the table that was identified that kind of was the zoom in, just showed you how the same open space is achieved. It's exact same road layout. The road hasn't changed at all because the sewer district's already put a sewer main down the road. The lot count doesn't change at all. It's the exact same lot count. So it's basically gonna be the exact same look. The only difference is we would have larger single-family lots that we could sell to anyone rather than having them all be age restricted. One of the things we've changed as well due to the transportation changes at the city, 7300 West is currently planned to stay high. As you know, there's a large ravine there, and the city would like to just have 7300 West maintain the elevation of Herriman Main Street as it crosses the creek. And so where we are adjacent to that, we're gonna have a tough time tying our roads into 7300 West. So you can see on this concept plan, we are tying in as far south as possible. And then we have our parcel A, which will become a park detention area at the end of the street that will actually sit down from the 7300 West because we can't connect that road into 7300 West due to elevation constraints. This plan also contemplates a change in, I think it's 7900 West from a collector to a local street. And we've changed the location of the road that crosses the creek from the original layout. I think it's labeled on this plan as Western Oak Drive. I don't know if that's what the eventual naming will be for that, but we changed that location so that it works with the grades and the engineering better than the original plan. The one thing this plan doesn't do is on the southwest corner where there are large half-acre lots, it shows the cul-de-sac coming in from the east and going west. We will actually change that from the west and go east because this plan basically had a 35-foot cut doing it this way. So this concept plan changes with that layout. So we want to make sure that's clear that we're not doing crazy things like cutting 35 feet off the hillside. Back in the land use plan, if you go back to the proposed land use plan, between our pods 5 and 6, we worked with the staff to change the storm drain design and detention concept of how that all worked. And that was all done administratively. So this amended MDA cleans that open space up and makes it reflect what's actually built in the field. Same thing with all of the area north of Pod 20, which is owned by Perry Homes. There were adjustments made to the open space along the creek there to work with engineering, like Mike mentioned. So the boundaries of the open space are corrected on this updated land use map to show what actually got approved at the city. So we're just trying to make this map as consistent and up to date as possible while we're doing the changes. So with that, I will answer any questions you have for me.
Could you go back to the slide you showed of 1517? So in this layout, and I know this is preliminary and not set in stone, originally you had 88 units that were going to be senior units. And if these pads, the way that you have it, I think I only counted 33 of them. And the rest go to single-family, larger lots. I guess my question is, will there be any restrictions on the type of people that can own all the other single-family lots that aren't part of the pads?
No restrictions.
No restrictions. Okay. So you're going from a 88 unit senior housing to a 33-unit senior housing, and then just getting single-family for the remainder.
Right.
Still maintaining the same number of units,
Same
you know,
exact
within
number.
the two pods, but,
Yes.
okay.
See, I had a question. As you were speaking, you mentioned that with this layout, which was, I guess, given to Mike yesterday or so, that it met open space requirements, or we're still short on open space because of this change?
Well, the table on the land use map goes through the math on how it equals the same open space. So if you take the side yard setbacks that are on a traditional single-family lot, front, rear yard, it's exactly the same as a pad lot. There's no difference. The only difference is a pad lot is in common ownership. The traditional single-family lot would be in private ownership, but the reality is, we all know that around a pad lot, if you're buying that lot, you're gonna think that's your yard in behind your house and in front of your house anyway. So it's
Somebody else
just, it's
gets to
just an
mow it.
interpretation of how your code is written.
Somebody else gets to mow that backyard for you, though?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no proposal for a fee in lieu as far as open space?
If we have to, as we start plating it, I think that's already contemplated in our MDA, that if we don't meet open space, we would pay the fee in lieu.
But it does meet, but you're saying this would meet that?
But this concept would meet that.
Okay. In our packets, it said that it didn't meet it, and could potentially be a fee in lieu, but that's going off
I
of our
think what
packets.
we're saying is that the effect of the open space under the redesign is the same, but it doesn't qualify technically under our ordinance as open space. So in the open space table, you saw that it said 19 point, I think it was 17% open space was provided. The minimum is technically supposed to be 20. There is an option for how that shortfall can be cured. And we're anticipating that if in the end, as the development is completed, if that's what happens, that may be an option. And again, that's a conversation that the city council, the developer and the city council have not had yet. But that's an option.
Because we can't count single-family, privately owned lots as open space.
Right, if it's private.
Yeah.
Then it's not going to be.
Yeah.
But the pad lots have open space around them, and that
Yeah,
gets,
those can be counted,
could
just
be
not
counted
the
towards.
single families.
Including the driveway, which
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me, but,
Yeah.
but I figured you, as a city, would rather have larger lots, as large as possible, because I know that's what I hear when I come to the city all the time, is you want more large lots.
That's how most city council members get elected.
Yeah, exactly. I hear it in every single city I go to. So that's why we are proposing this plan. I think it's something that the city would benefit from, especially adjacent to that creek and open space. I think there's a lot of people that would like to live in that area, including seniors and people that aren't seniors would like to live adjacent to that creek.
And again, just for the record, so in current city code, which has also been adopted is vested in their agreement, there are two provisions in the open space provision. It says open space may be provided in a location outside of the boundaries of the planned development overlay zone if the following requirements are met. And so there's a series of standards that would need to be reviewed. Another option, it says a fee in lieu of required open space may be provided if the following requirements are met. And again, it's outlined in the code. So again, that's something that we'll have further conversation on between the applicant and the city council under this MDA.
Okay. As the exact measurements of this proposal get taken. Okay. Have further questions for the applicant? All right, well, thank you for.
Okay. If I can reserve time to answer any questions from the public, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, that would be in the plan. So with that said, we will open the meeting up for public comment. The policy, as stated earlier, is what is still happening. So please come forward and get us new information. And please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Sean Doxey, and my wife and I, Michelle, live in that little white house that's been there since 1947. We are directly impacted by this new subdivision in a lot of ways. But what we wanted to talk about was they're raising the level so high. When we first moved out there, there was a boundary dispute, and Ivory said, we'll build you a 6-foot privacy fence and give you easement for sewer. The sewer's still coming along, and now we're looking out and we see the 6-foot, where the 6-foot privacy fence would be, but the road's probably 8 feet above it. And my concerns, or our concerns, are, of course, where's the water going to shed to? Because we are directly downhill. When Herriman widened the road, Herriman Main Street or Herriman Highway, the widening ended right at our driveway, and now the water channels right down our driveway and into the shed. Is this going to be, are we the new floodplain? Because I know that they did Butterfield Creek, but I'm not sure that it'll take it all, and we're looking at a real steep hill. South Valley says the sewer's still coming, so we're hopeful. What else? This is Michelle.
So what we.
If you could state your name for the record, please.
Pardon me?
If you could state your name for the record, please.
Michelle Doxey.
Michelle Doxey. Oh, thank you.
So we've been in contact with Ivory Homes since they bought the property from Richard Danzy. And Richard Danzy is who we worked with on our survey to run the fence line. And then Ivory Homes said our survey was wrong, even though we had a recorded survey. And they had us move our fence because now they didn't have enough open space. So now they've got enough open space, but they still want to change the open space. So everything Ivory has told us has been incorrect. As Sean was mentioning, the elevation of the roads, I mean, they are so high, they almost rival high country estates. The slope on that has got to be like this, that comes right down along our whole back property line, which is 950 feet. Butterfield Hollow, the curb and gutter stopped right at our driveway, and again, slopes right into our driveway, runs right down into our outbuildings. And we've been working with Jonathan, the engineering with Herriman, and he said that the city would address it, but you haven't been able to yet. But who's going to address what happens when all that water from Ivory Homes comes into our property? It's scary. I mean, that slope is like this. And by changing the senior citizen requirement, so you can assume there's 2 people living in a senior citizen house. A single family resident, I mean, we're in Utah. We could have 8 people in that house. So now we're gonna times the number of houses by 8 instead of the number of houses by 2. And the roads are already packed. Herriman Highway is like their own personal racetrack. There is so much traffic there. There's no patrolling. And when we get all these other people living behind us, how are they going to get in and out, and how is that going to impact, the road pulling in and out of our driveway, or even sitting in the front yard when people are going, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. So, it's super frustrating that they made this plan, and everything they've told us so far, like they said, oh, the roads are only going to be about 3 feet higher. They're like 20 feet higher. And we're assuming they're still going to put in a fence like they said, but, what's the privacy when those roads when those roads are so far, so much higher than we are. Another issue is we never even got the paper about this meeting tonight. Liz texted me and said, did you get this? And no, and we never did get it. And I know there's 30 other homes just east of us that back that subdivision that probably did not get that piece of paper either. So I'm thinking there should be more notification. We should be able to view the plans, what they're proposing. I mean, because we can't actually talk about something if nobody has the information to talk about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can we get a plot map of, the changes? I know he had one up here, but we looked online and couldn't find anything.
Yes, we can certainly help you with that afterwards.
Thank you.
Any additional comments?
So this is the item that that we received an email yesterday. I forwarded it to the city recorder and to you. I don't know if you want to have that read into the record.
I think it would be great if we could have it read into the record. Who gets to do the reading?
All right, so this is from Elizabeth Loy. I'll just read verbatim. I received a notification of the proposed changes to the master plan development for Hidden Oaks and Herriman. I want to express my concerns regarding the proposal to reduce the amount of open space in the plan. I also want to express the concern of any proposed increase of housing density in the development. This is a very small area that we have a significant impact on traffic along Herriman Highway. Any increase in housing density would only compound the traffic problem. I also want to express concern that the senior living designation is being taken out. The senior development designation would allow for the area to have fewer young children that would impact the schools of the area. The senior living was a significant plus for a local community. The development was initially touted as a senior living community that would offer a great deal of green space, a natural walkway, etc. And I'm already saddened to see that all the shrub oat, I'm guessing she said oak, has been cleared from the entire area. This is ironic since the development is named Hidden Oaks. I have the following questions. Why has the reduction in open space been approved? How does the reduction in open space impact the density of the development? Why was the capital improvement on 7900 West been removed from the road improvement plan? This is a vital aspect of the plan that needs to be completed. This improvement was a big selling point to the initial master plan. Why the proposed change to the development no longer be a senior living community? I feel the most vital elements of the master plan that benefited the local community have been removed by the developer. This comes across as being a subversive way to offer one plan to get community approval, only to turn around and change the entire plan, removing the elements that were selling a point for the local community. My husband and I are very much opposed to the proposed changes. I urge Herriman City to put the needs and interests of local community members ahead of special interests of developers. This is an ongoing concern that many residents of Herriman have. Herriman needs to do the right thing and hold the developers to the initial master plan that was proposed and approved.
Thank you. Any other comments online? Any proposals to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second by Heather. Thank you. Forrest, Heather?
Yes.
All approved?
Yes.
Yeah,
Aye.
aye.
Yeah, I'll get that right sometime here, I will. All right, let's open this up for discussion amongst the commission.
Can we go back to the city's proposal amendments and the list of city recommendations?
I did not detail out, you're talking about the list of requests from the applicant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go back a couple
start,
more.
yeah.
It has about like 6 bullets on it. Yeah, there you go, 5.
There you go, proposed amendments. So, for me personally, removing references to senior housing within the agreement, I think that that is a big mistake. And the reason that I think it's a big mistake is within the definitions of the MDA, it says that they need to follow the definition of the Older Person Act of 1995, which requires 80% of the dwelling units to be occupied by someone 55 years of age or older. And if we look at the percentages of the units, so we have 88 units within pods 15 and 17, 39 of which would be, I guess, senior housing. But I feel like by removing that text from the MDA, there's nothing stopping them from just making them all single-family residents. And I think that there's a valid concern that to say that this is going to be a senior housing area and then remove that. And I understand that in that schematic they sent, that they just sent us, it did have some still, but I think if we remove senior housing from the MDA, there's nothing stopping them from just saying that there is no senior housing. And kind of defeats the purpose of, of why this development was praised at the time that the MDA went through. That's my personal opinion.
There are some definite advantages to senior housing.
There are,
So,
including schools. That was a very valid point. If you go from 88 units of senior housing to just 39.
well, and that was senior targeted.
Yeah, senior targeted, sorry.
But as cluster homes, I think they'll be more affordable for all residents.
It's true, and that's kind of what we've been talking about recently is, aging in place. That's the problem that we have in Herriman, and I understand the developer said that everyone wants bigger lots and bigger homes, but one of the things that we are looking for, at least as a planning commission, I feel, is the ability to stay within our community and having starter homes, having the larger lots, but also having places where, as you become older, which I'm getting closer to, there's a place for you to go where you don't need 6, 7 bedrooms with the typical Herriman residence. So I think that by eliminating that, I think that that's a big mistake. All the other ones I don't care about.
I can say it's.
I mean, they're
it's
okay, in my
yeah.
opinion. Open space, I mean, it's within the MDA. It has options for them to pay a fee or to relocate to another location. That's all. That's just part of the
I agree on that one.
process.
And to play the devil's advocate, because I like senior housing, and I think it's would be a good good for our city to have more.
Yeah, benefit. Yeah.
It's just that I know that there's some council members who ran on more and bigger lots, or less density, bigger lots.
Sure.
Maybe that's a better way to phrase it. Now, something that I would say is semi-planning commission, but not really. I know as far as the sewer and drainage and some of the conditions in discussions with Ivory, drainage has to stay within their own property, and that would be something to be dealt with in the permitting process. And so that's a different process than coming here to Planning Commission. The fence, is required, but also any promises that Ivory Homes has made isn't really part of this discussion. I mean, it is, but that's not part of what's been requested tonight. And so that's a different discussion.
Right, a lot of those concerns would be more associated with like a actual development plan, a subdivision.
Right. Yep,
right, a
which
site
will be coming
plan.
later.
Right.
Yeah. So additional pieces are coming later. This is the first step. And so when they go to plat properties, there would be additional discussion on how the plats lay out. And so, but as to, as to drainage, they can't let anything on their property drain onto yours. And that's but that's a different discussion. Somewhat, yeah. Sorry. No, drainage is one that we aren't. Yep. So some of these issues will be discussed more in the future, but not necessarily tonight. So.
Yeah, and along the same lines, number 4, number 5, it was kind of a pipe dream to have 7900 West to be this great capital improvement road.
Well, it made more sense before U-111 moved, before the discussion about moving it happened.
And obviously, since that's moved, it's just not going to happen.
The plan is moving it. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, it makes sense to kind of remove that reference. And then I am a big advocate of reducing the right-of-way widths for some of these roads because I prefer people to drive slow than fast. And the wider your road, the faster they drive. It's proven, And so I'd much rather people slow down and have a little more respect for their neighbors and those that they're passing on the road.
So maybe back to the senior housing. I know one thing that's tough, that's difficult for me in the change, what they're proposing, the cluster homes are more affordable, and we definitely need that in our community. So seniors may buy some of them, but it'll be more than just them buying those cluster homes. Yeah. So that's a hard one. I know the cluster homes that are near my house everybody loves them, so. Or at least the people that are able to afford them love them.
Right, yeah.
So it's not for everybody, but it's for some. So it does provide, a diversity of housing.
Right.
But it's not age restricted.
Well, I think that only part of it is the age restricted. Like,
yeah.
I'm not a huge fan, and I'm just going to contradict myself real quick. I'm not a huge fan of saying that you have to be a certain age to live within a community. I think that's ageist, I guess. But if it's a selling point, if it's part of the MDA, I just feel like turning your back on it is a big mistake that the city will be making. So,
Commissioners, if I may, I'm sure that the applicant has far more experience with senior housing than I have. In my career, I've seen that it usually develops more as age targeted. It's a marketing, they're trying to attract perhaps an older clientele who's looking for a type of home that's more conducive, less stairs, patio homes and things like that. Age-specific or senior restricted housing works well if there is some type of, almost like if it's being invested, there's some type of tax incentive or some type of government underwriting, that we do see that. We do see affordable senior housing projects that are being provided by nonprofits. And those do come with a number of restrictions so that we know that senior housing is actually offered at a more affordable rate and will remain in the affordable housing stock. But where this is market rate housing, and it always was intended to be market rate housing, it's really difficult to have these restrictions, I have found in my career. You'll often find that the 55 plus, you still get family, extended family still living
And
in these
I feel bad
units.
here, Mike. I just realized that we skipped a step. I forgot to invite the
Oh,
applicant back up
yeah.
at the end of
So he
public.
can probably answer some
So-
of these questions, but.
And let me
yeah,
apologize to you
yeah.
as well, and invite the applicant back up, that sequence-wise, we're supposed to have you at the end of the public comment, and so I apologize for that.
Well, I was
We
just-
got excited and started talking.
I was just waiting patiently.
So, if you could state your name again one more time.
Brad Mackey with Ivory Development. I won't get into all of the personal details with the Doxey family. The only thing I will comment on is I did not volunteer to give them a privacy fence. I volunteered to put their fence on their property line because they had built onto our property because they had an errant survey from their surveyor. And we met on site, and he even admitted that he made a mistake in the basis of bearings, and it rotated their fence onto our property. So I volunteered to pay to put the fence on their property where it should have been in the beginning and move their riding arena back to where it should be on their own property. So that was the agreement. I never agreed to pay for a fence for their property. We might do a fence, we may not, I don't know, but that was not the agreement. So just want to clarify that. As far as senior housing goes, I just developed a subdivision in Riverton with senior housing, and I actually moved my father and my mother there about a year and a half ago, and it's gone well. Some of the things we've run into, which this change would allow us to do, is a lot of our buyers would like third-car garages, shops, to do woodworking, things like that, that would be allowed in a single-family lot. So with this change, we could still sell to seniors, we could still offer yard maintenance, which is really what they want in a senior community. They want to get rid of their lawnmower and have someone maintain their yards for them. But it would give them the ability to have the flexibility to have garage space and toy space for campers and things like that, which the pad lots don't allow for. There's not enough room to, and you can't park in the common area because it's common area. So it would allow for more flexibility to have the things that I think the people that would be buying in Herriman would enjoy. And so right now, it's already allowed to do single-family lots, like I mentioned before. So really, this amendment is about the senior housing. So if the senior housing is something that doesn't get approved, then the amendment really doesn't need to go forward, because we could just do everything currently except for your road that's in the agreement, that's already done and approved, ready to go. So that is the key, is trying to create some flexibility so that we can have the ability to sell to more buyers. 88 senior housing units will take us years. And that really restricts our sales on the property because there's just not that many buyers. We've been selling the one in Riverton that's only 34 lots for about 3 or 4 years now, and we've only sold about 15 homes in that community. So you can imagine 88 homes, how much longer that would take us to sell. So it's really something that we need to be able to divide some of that 88 up and have the ability to sell some homes while still providing some senior housing. So if that helps at all, I think that's the intent of this amendment. If you have any questions, glad to answer them.
So, I mean, I understand the approach, and I understand you saying that, this gives them the opportunity to not just have a pad, but seniors can also buy a single-family house and have their workshops and everything else.
Correct.
But by eliminating the senior housing, any mention of senior housing within the agreement, it doesn't prevent anyone from going and just buying those lots.
That's
at
correct.
all, at all. So there'd be no senior element at all, except for the pods, but then again, unless they're restricted, and I think I asked you this before, unless there's a restriction on pod 15 and 17 that 80% or Yeah, 80% need to be occupied by someone 55 years older, 55 years old or older. If you don't have any kind of restriction, then they're just going to evaporate. They're just going to become single-family houses with 13 kids or whatever. I mean, there's just nothing stopping it. And so I think that's I understand your reasoning, and I understand the approach, and I don't think that you have to have them all to be on pods, because nowhere in the MDA does it state that they have to all be on pods, but you can still offer the single-family homes as senior housing. And nothing in the 1995 Old Persons Act states that it has to be subsidized or low income or cheaper. And so I think that, would you be open, I guess, to restricting those two pods to 80% being senior or following the Old Persons Act of 1995?
Well, it's already there. That's already in the MDA.
Right, and what I'm saying, though, is if we remove the senior housing from the agreement, would you have another control for those two pods to maintain that at least 80% of them are going to be senior housing?
Well, it wouldn't be 80%, no, because that's already in your MDA. 80% of the houses in the Old Persons Act is the Senior Housing Act.
Right, yes, that is.
So no, that wouldn't make any sense. But I would say there's a percentage, maybe we would look at maintaining as age targeted.
Right.
But not as age restricted. That's the whole purpose of the amendment.
Okay, so you don't want to do the Old Persons Act of 1995, which was in the MDA. Let's just be clear. Let's be 100% clear.
Yeah, that's 100% clear.
Okay.
The Old Persons Act is a federal act that's just stated in there that is a guideline that makes the community audit every year the number of persons that are 55 and older. And so if a man marries a woman that's 40 and he dies, it gives the ability for his wife to stay in the house without being kicked out.
Yep.
If that percentage goes over the 80%, let's say there's a lot of older women that marry young men and they all pass away and there's a bunch of young men living in there and it's more than 80%, then someone has to move out.
Yeah.
So the restriction is a really harsh restriction, and it makes it very difficult, very expensive for HOA management to manage that process every year to comply with federal guidelines. So we would like to remove that so that we can have a little more flexibility.
Sure, I understand that.
Thank you. With that, let's open up discussion amongst commissioners.
Sure. I respect my fellow commissioners, but I don't really have a problem with the amended plating. I think it will give the citizenship a good product. It just takes out the age restriction. I certainly qualify for 55 plus, but it's not a concern from in my personal world.
And as I sit here thinking about it and looking at it, I would say there's going to be a natural selection for older, mostly because all of those lots along the river are going to be pretty nice. And the prices are going to be a lot higher, and that will automatically restrict the age of, you're not going to have young families buying a $1.5 million house. So naturally, it gets restricted.
I mean, I don't know, this is Herriman.
That's true.
Everything is $500,000 house.
Well, no, $1.5 million.
Or $1.5 million, I mean, we're getting close.
All those lots along the river are going to be expensive.
They will be expensive.
And so I think it will naturally reduce the amount of people and the amount of, I think it's going to be people buying their second or third home that are moving in there. So it'll naturally get restricted.
Yeah,
And then the other piece for me, maybe I'm talking too much, but the other piece for me is I see the difficulty that is faced by the Ivory's of trying to get older residents to leave their house in Sandy and come over here. They're just not leaving their houses.
Sure.
They've got their 2% loan or no loan, and they're not moving.
It's true, but, yeah.
So, I don't know.
Want
It's
to say
tough.
something, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to say, you could advise the council of these concerns if you want to explain anything in your motion. And it sounds like you're more almost concerned about affordability than really about, senior housing. You could have maybe a reduced percentage, or you could specify the 38 pod units if you want. I mean, obviously you have a lot of options.
Sure.
To express to the council what it is that you're thinking.
Well, and I think for me personally, it's the idea of just removing it. And there's nothing saying that those are going to be pods in the future or pad developments, because they can literally just change everything to single family housing. I mean, there's nothing. And so we do MDAs for a reason, and we review them, pretty aggressively, because we would like to get what the MDA says. And so if we just say, okay, well, no, it's okay, you can just do single-family houses, you're just eliminating one of the key reasons that they do an MDA.
Any other thoughts from
What size
other
were they
commissioners?
proposing for those 39 units? Was there a square footage?
There
that they
was,
need?
but I couldn't read it. It was a little small. I think they were about 2,000 square feet.
So that would,
It was cluster home size.
Yeah.
so 2,000 or less, that would kind of limit who could live there too, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would. It would also encourage younger people to live there.
True.
And that kind of defeats the purpose of having a section of senior housing.
It could also make it a nice spot for somebody who doesn't want to be surrounded by all seniors. They could have a young family and an older couple.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could get a mix as well.
But I don't think the money is the issue, because I think that people who are in their senior years tend to be a little bit more graced with funds.
Is it more about making sure it's cluster style? Or?
I think it's about, for me, it's about having it within the agreement and keeping it within the agreement and not turning our backs on what we told the public it was going to be.
That's what I go back to, is I think about when we originally approved the plan and we're looking at this holistically with all of these units and, just the changes that could happen just by removing senior housing.
Right.
So,
I mean, because they could still keep the senior housing portion and still do the single-family size lots, the larger lots. They could still do that. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. Just requiring it to be senior housing that they want to eliminate. Because we're okay with the open spaces, right? And we're okay with the other stuff.
Yeah.
What happens if we keep that reference and they have to build the senior housing and then it doesn't sell? Do we know what happens at that point?
Oh, they can still sell it. They just have to be over 55.
What if they can't find buyers that are over 55?
I'm just blown away by the statement that they can't find buyers. Like, I don't know.
Isn't that what
With
they were
the state of
saying,
our
though? Yeah.
housing right now in Utah, I was a little surprised when he said that.
Well, and again, you may want to explore that further. I know that Ivory has done other projects.
Developments, yeah.
But the market has changed a lot too in the last, as we all know, right, in the last few years especially, so.
And it'll
Have
continue
some
to
additional
change.
questions. I'm sure
Yeah.
that answer.
Yeah, by the time these houses start being built, the market may be totally different than it is right now.
Well, they might even be looking at Gen X at that point.
I know, right?
Forrest, your concern then is if they drop the senior housing on those 30 pads, there's nothing in the MDA that causes him to keep those pads for any age bracket or any economic status. He can drop those and just put single-family lots in.
Well, it's not just the 30. So originally it's 88 units. And so those 88 units, they've dropped it down to 39. That was their schematic proposal, was that it was going to be dropped down to 39 units. But by eliminating that out of the text and out of the MDA, there's nothing saying that those 39 are going to be senior housing.
Yeah, and I guess
Or any of them, for that matter.
I'm not putting a priority on that. I think the economics will drive it. I personally like the idea of keeping the pads, but just removing the 55 and older restriction.
Yeah, because this doesn't change the dwelling units at all. The dwelling units are exactly still the same. So I'm not worried about that.
We have the maintain, right? You have the applicant's request, which is to remove. Is there an appetite for something, a compromise, like the 39 pads? Out of those 39 pads, could they be the senior restriction, which would be 80% of the pads, right, would be 55 plus? I mean, I'm just wondering, like, is there a middle ground there?
Right.
I mean, I don't know where the majority position of the commission is, but you know, that's an option, right?
Yes, please, come on up.
So I've been at Ivory 21 years, and I've developed about 20,000 lots in my career, and I've done five age targeted and age-restricted communities. The only age-restricted community that I've actually done that worked is right by Word Perfect campus down in Orem, and that was the first one we've done. Our second one is in Riverton, but then we've done Garden Park at Daybreak, which is several hundred, 240 units, I believe, that are age targeted. All of those have maintained the age targeted. They were sold to people 55 and older, and they've maintained that. And it's a targeted community, not restricted. We have one down in Lehigh at Ivory Ridge that is an age targeted community. There's 45 units there. All of those have been probably 75 and older in that community. And then we did one in Pepperwood in Sandy that is an age-targeted community. And there are sections of that are very, very similar to this, where we have some pads right across the street from some larger lots, and it's intermixed in the area. And it's an amazing community. That's probably our best one of all of the communities, is the Pepperwood Creek community in Sandy. And the pad sizes shown on this plan are exactly what we showed there, and the lot sizes that we show on this plan are exactly what we put in that community. And that has turned out to be the most high-end and best-looking community of all of them that we have done. So I've done it all different varieties, and I think this hybrid version is the best and most successful. I know you may think that being restrictive is the way to go, but most age, I guess you'd call them active adult communities in Utah, are actually what you'd call age targeted. They are not restricted. And I think if you research that around the state, most of them are not age restricted because they are so restrictive, it kind of makes it not desirable to live in the community. And it just raises your HOA fees. For instance, in Riverton, a lady just asked me what the fees are there. It's $250 a month to have your HOA cover your snow removal, your yard maintenance, your garbage cans, your water, things like that. So it's not like it's an affordable community just because you do pads. So
So could you clarify then for us your definition of age restricted and age?
Age restricted follows the Old Persons Act of 1995, where it's a federal housing mandate to follow their guidelines. Age targeted is a marketing, and it's really marketing, campaign, and housing type that you build.
Sure. So like in Daybreak, they're
all age targeted.
They're actually age restricted because I lived there.
No.
And they do not sell to anyone under the age of 55.
But it's age targeted, it's not restricted. I developed
You
it.
can't buy a house because you're not 55.
That's because the HOA doesn't allow it. But it is not age restricted, it's age targeted. I developed it, I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you for the additional information.
Yeah.
So for me, I would love to review like where in the agreement it mentions senior housing, like what sections is it going to impact? Like,
So that was in your attachments. It's in the original MDA.
you know what page that's on?
I pulled it up here just a minute ago. And it's the reference is very brief. It's on page at least 10 of the agreement. It says senior housing pod 15 and 17 shall be developed only for senior housing. And then previously it defined senior housing means residential dwelling units that are compliant with the Housing for Older Persons Act of 1995, which is what Commissioner Sickles was referring to. So very minimal.
But pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So it sounds like the age targeted with an HOA has been effective. I mean, that's what you observed in Daybreak, that they were able to at least effectuate that. Right, without relying on the federal
Well,
law.
and that's why I was asking if there was some other kind of restriction that we could put on it, that would allow this still to be senior housing without actually having the text there,
So maybe
So
it's
if we-
just a
that is not what
restriction.
they want. They want
So if we take out if we take out the senior housing out of MDA and then recommend that it be replaced with age targeted.
With an HOA component for those 39 pods or whatever, those pads, yeah.
Well, I would say for the two pods, as was in the MDA.
But for that layout where it's showing the 38?
No, I'd say the entire.
Well, that's up to you. That's
The
up to
entire
you.
two
That-
pods.
that's
because
almost more of a
that's what's in
layout
the
issue
MDA.
than
That's just my opinion.
I'm leaning towards taking out the senior housing, and if they want to, and with the recommendation that they market it as age targeted.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the compromise.
I don't vote unless there's a 2-2.
Well, I think we're at an impasse, so we've got to.
Yeah, someone just needs to make a motion, and then we'll make our recommendation to
I would
City Council.
buy into it if it's the age targeted.
If it goes 2-2, that's where I'm at.
I will say, just for the record, again, your last recommendation on South Hills, that MDA, the council considered your recommendations very carefully. So, any comment on your motion, I'm sure they will take that under advisement, right?
So I'm looking at this agreement, and so 2.7, it says senior housing, pod 15 and pod 17 shall be developed only for senior housing. And that is all it says. But it is so straightforward. And then above that, it does talk about fencing requirements.
Right, and again, we would deal with that more with the
Yeah.
subdivision review or
Just
site
throwing
plan
it out there.
review.
Yeah, we won't change the fencing requirements.
Yeah. No, I won't.
Well, I can't make a motion.
All right.
Looking at
I will make a motion to make a recommendation of approval to the city council for item 5.3 For the proposed amendments, 1, 2, strike 3, 4, and 5.
I'll second.
Motion by Heather, second by Forrest. So we'll, roll call, Forrest,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Daryl,
Yes.
Andrea.
Yes.
The motion as directed by Heather is approved for recommendation onto City Council.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's move on to item 5.4. This is also, will be presented by Mike Malloy regarding animal services within the city.
So we discussed this briefly in our work meeting tonight, but for those who may be listening from the general public, our city council had amended our animal regulations in the city earlier this year. And in doing so, they also adopted a notice of a pending ordinance amendment affecting Title 10, which we often refer to just as the zoning code, the land development code. And the purpose of that pending ordinance provision was to bring Title 10 in align with these other changes in Title 5, which is where we have most of our codes for animal services, our own enforcement, our own response to, what type of animal regulations we have in the city. So that's the purpose of this amendment, is to try and bring alignment of these different sections of the code. Now, we also have animal establishments, which is a license for business licenses, sorry. So typically like a vet, or if we had a pet store or other kind of commercial uses, they would need to get a business license out of Title III. We have been seeing some people use what's called a fancier's permit for breeding, doing that as a home occupation and getting a business license for that as well. So there's a bit of crossover. Now, in the current code or the previous Title V, we did allow for people to get these special permits, the fancier permit, the hobby permit, to have more than 3 dogs in the city. They were special permits that would have a zoning review as well as an animal services review. In the changes to Title V, we've gone back to being a 3-dog town. We're basically saying we're not going to entertain permits for these other licenses that might let you have more than 3 dogs under a conditional use or a special provision. So again, we're making these changes in Title 10 to be consistent with what the council has already approved in Title 5. Now, there's also a reference to exotic animal permits. This was not something that was specifically addressed when the council enacted the Title 5 amendments. However, one of the larger objectives of this amendment was to try to simplify our codes for both the public benefit, so they can read and understand our codes, as well as for our enforcement and licensing. So exotic animal permits is currently defined in Title 10. It was not specifically listed in our land use table, though. And so I'd contacted our animal services department and asked them, would they still prefer to keep some regulations for exotic animals? Again, this does not allow someone to violate any state or federal regulations when it comes to exotic or dangerous animals. It would not trump those requirements. So in your packet, we do have language in there that still maintains exotic animal permits in Title 10. However, that change to Title 5 was drafted by our city attorney's office. That's not something that has to be presented to the Planning Commission for review. And again, the larger effort is to try and consolidate a lot of these regulations in Title V. And so our city attorney, prior to this meeting, has expressed a desire that the commission, in forwarding this amendment to the council, would actually recommend removing exotic animal permits from Title 10 as it's currently drafted, and then allowing the council to direct the attorney's office whether or not to introduce that into Title 5. Okay, so that's a possible amendment or change to the proposed ordinance as you have it before you tonight. So that's a question for you. Do you want to keep exotic animals in Title 10, or do you agree with the city attorney's recommendation to remove it out of Title 10 and allow the city council to either include it in Title 5 or just not have it in the city? So you're not going to read through all of this, but you have all of these, I think it's 6 pages of the amendments. I included, this is an excerpt from City Code, but I tried to include all of the kind of references and definitions to different animal regulations in the City Code, including commercial uses. So here's that reference to the definition of exotic animal. You see that it's not underlined, meaning that's currently in our code right now. So if you were to make a motion to remove exotic animal permits and references in Title 10, we would strike that. Also in the land use table, you can see there's this footnote down here. It's talking about where certain animal and fowl for food production is allowed, and there had this language, exotic animal permits, that would be struck. And then this permit, where it would be allowed, currently is showing that it would be a permitted use in all of these different residential zones. So we would remove that as well, if that was your motion. So you can see we're just removing those special permits, the fancier permit, the hobby permit, and then also this foster animal permit, which is kind of like a rescue program in coordination with the shelters in the valley. So your job again tonight is to review this proposal, consider it, conduct a public hearing, and make a motion to approve, modify. You can table. We are working on a little bit of a timeline. The pending ordinance provision does expire in August, September. So we were hoping to get this to the council before that expired. I did forget, there was one other small change that we had identified as staff. We think this is just a technical correction. When the city had adopted several years ago some regulations for backyard chickens, it was really saying we want to allow detached single-family homeowners to have this opportunity, which we know it's been fairly popular for a while now, not just in Herriman, but everywhere you go. But we kind of identified it just in the R1 zones, but we have a lot of single-family detached homes in the R2 as well. And so we were just kind of introducing this little correction saying you can have that use in a detached single-family home in either R1 or R2 zone. I think that's consistent with the intent of that regulation. But we wanted to clarify that because we have had some single-family homeowners in the R2 zones that technically we're not allowed to have backyard chickens. So that was just a technical correction. Anyway, so that's before you tonight. Any questions for me at this point in time?
So just clarification on the removal of the exotic animal definition and permitted use.
Yeah.
So following what the legal wants us to do, would that put it in section 3?
So you would just make a motion to approve the proposed draft or recommend approval of the proposed ordinance.
Sure.
With the removal of exotic animal permits from Title 10 altogether. Okay. And then the council would make the decision whether or not they're going to direct the attorney's office to add it to Title 5.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Actually, I should say Michael, I apologize. Let's open this up for public comment. Anyone online?
I'll make a motion to close the public comment.
Second.
Second by Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, with that said,
Just for clarification purposes,
More comment.
the Animal Services Department falls underneath the Herriman City Police Department as an enforcement arm, and we concur and agree with the city attorney's recommendation to strike exotic animal permits from Title 10. So if that wasn't clear, that's also our understanding and desire to move in that direction of not permitting exotic animals in the city.
Thank you. All right, any discussion for the commission?
Can we go back one slide?
Can we go back one slide?
And my question was on one more, I think, where it showed, the 40 small animals, is that state law or
What's the question again?
for the lot sizes 0.49 acres or less for 40 small animals, is that state law to allow that many?
This is, no, this is not a reflection of state law.
That just
Yeah.
seems like a lot of animals
Yeah.
to me. But
Yeah.
Oh, the graph on the right, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, this is all local. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's city code right now.
Right, so someone could have 40 rabbits?
40 ducks.
So many.
You know, I must admit, since I know this was a big lift and there was a lot of discussion with the council when this, but it hasn't really been an issue since I've been here in 6 years. I mean, that section of the code, animal and fowl. Other than this one thing, and that was identified with some residents who'd contacted Lauren Hoadley, our planner, just saying, you know, I think there's just a little technical error there, so.
So if we remove the exotic animals from chapter 10, does that mean that they will no longer be permitted in Herriman? So.
Right, we would not issue, if we
You wouldn't
have
issue
any
a permit.
licenses, I guess they'd be grandfathered, but we would not issue new ones. Right, and unless they move it over to Title V. Yeah.
Okay, so like no alpacas in Herriman anymore? Because they're not native to the United States? Or sugar flyers or boa constrictors or... Yeah. Okay.
You can keep your tarantula.
Your definition. It's true.
Sure, we could find a few here for you.
I've come across them.
I think it looks so good. You guys did a great job, and I know there was a lot of lift with this. I would like to revisit some of those animals and the quantity, but not today.
Yeah, again, this is just trying to align with what the council's already done, and you're right, maybe there will be some further conversation in the future, but we're just trying to make consistency between these two titles.
Yeah, we had an issue with alpacas and llamas from an enforcement perspective. Just so that you know, they're actually included in the definition of agriculture. So they're not licensed as an exotic animal because they're included in our livestock and agriculture permitted uses.
Ah, that's right. Yes, fur-bearing animals.
I'm sorry, I did not know that. Thanks, Cody.
Well, when he said that they had problems, I was like, did they hurt people?
Watch out, they spit.
Sounds good.
Beekeeping is becoming quite popular. That's outside of this exotic animal permit. Is that
Right.
from law?
Yeah, so we have other regulations on beekeeping, and you can see that definition is in here. And,
I do. I
yeah.
just was curious to know if law enforcement had issue with, so many neighbors have beehives now.
So apiary is what that is, and it's defined and permitted in certain districts. So.
Man, I'm learning all kinds of things. Did you say apiary?
Apiary, yeah.
I don't have any issues.
I'm ready to make a motion. We
Go
good?
for it.
All right, I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the city council for item 5.4.
I'll second.
Motion by Heather, second by Forrest. Let's do a vote. Andrea?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Motion for recommendation is approved for
I'm
to city
curious.
council.
So you want to keep exotic animals in the, do you want to reconsider your motion?
I would like to reconsider my motion.
I'll second her reconsider. her motion.
Okay, so,
Oh, do you need a vote to
She's got to say it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. all right. So I need to add to my motion to remove exotic animals. Okay. I will make a motion to recommend approval to the city council for item 5.4 and recommend that exotic animals permits be removed
From chapter 10.
from chapter 10
Yeah, and the definition, yeah.
and the definition.
Second.
Motion by Heather, second by Forrest to re-motion. I guess is the best term. I'll do a roll call. Heather? Yeah, let's do that.
Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
All right. The re-motion has been recommended for approval.
Thank you,
and forward onto city council. With that, that is the end of today's agenda. Any comments? Cool, no comments. Future meetings. The next joint city council meeting, July 31st, was canceled. And so there may be a future recommendation for work session with planning commission, and that we will be notified of that. Next planning commission meeting is August 7th. Next city council meeting is August 14th. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I need a motion.
Oh. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That got a little longer tonight. There was.